Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first Telling Tales stream of 2025. We are so very delighted to be here in the happiest year mankind has ever seen. Um, yeah, there'll be a big old recap, so don't you worry about that. I know that the players are very keen on that happening. And in keeping with the time-honored traditions laid down probably in the last 2 or 3 streams. I'm not going to go into a big kind of blurb about all the other stuff. Just know there is links below. There's all the kind of stuff you might expect. Why not? Why not check it out? But yeah, we're here to play Symbaroum. Specifically, we're now playing the Darkest Star, which is the third part of the Throne of Thorns campaign, the big published campaign for Symbaroum by Fria Ligan. Yeah, it's all getting pretty exciting. And with that in mind, you know what? What I might do is just roll more or less. I'll bring people on one by one. John is currently AFK and usually handles the art, so you'll have to bear with us a little bit on that. But I'll start bringing people on, and we'll see how it goes as there's a steady drip feed of familiar and lovely names into the chat. Let's start with Chris. Hi, Chris.
Happy New Year, Matt.
Happy New Year. What has 2025 brought you all the treasures in the world already?
Yes, I just got a big packet of existential dread from Father Christmas this year, so looking forward to indulging in that.
That'd be nice, but it's a bit repetitive of him, isn't it? I seem to recall you getting that the year before and the year before that, and
stop, please, for the love of God, stop.
So on and so forth. Practice maybe the credit crunch, like maybe that was, the start of all this. For younger millennials, Gen Z and Gen Alpha in the audience, the credit crunch was a thing that happened. So with that in mind, Chris plays Steo, former infantryman, kind of traumatized veteran of an undead war, former city guard, now turned someone trying to make a mixture. I'd say he's 50-50 trying to make something worthwhile of his last years and also trying to have a really quiet few last years. Like they are the two wolves warring within him, right? I get the sense of, but but we won't go too much into people's reactions to the latest events because I'm fairly sure my players have forgotten the latest events. I certainly had until I rewatched the last episode this morning. So there we go. Let's bring on our next player, and it is John, who is BAK, back at keyboard. How come no one's ever used that before? John plays Arendar, the last remaining member of the noble house of Dar, duelist adventurer, somewhat conscience of the team. I only say somewhat because Steele's also kind of the conscience of the team. Also, Anton is kind of the conscience. Really, what it is there's two people who aren't the conscience of the team, and we'll get onto them in a moment. Hi, John. Happy New Year, etc. How are you? Chris said what Santa brought him, which was a big pile of existential dread. What did Santa bring you over the festive period?
I don't know how to tell you this, Matt, but Santa isn't real.
Yeah, we know that, John. We know that, John. But I was putting it out there as a construct and a short form to ask what you got for Christmas.
I know, but I couldn't think of anything to actually respond, so I just have to respond with like cynicism and cruelty because that is all I have in my heart.
That's fair enough, but but you say that, but I actually really enjoyed that because it allowed me to do something I really enjoy doing, which is shutting down a yes and in the most brutal and unaccepting way possible. Of just going, I don't really understand. That seems like you're saying something that isn't real for humorous value. What do you mean by that, really? So that was your gift to me. I'm a GM.
Maybe I'm Santa.
Maybe you're what?
Maybe I'm Santa.
Maybe your Santa. Maybe the Santa was the Santa we met along the way. Right, let's get moving on from this shit. Let's bring on Stephen.
I don't understand what John said about Santa. Don't you badmouth the big man. He'll bring you coal next year.
Shit. We may have just started a level of generational trauma in Stephen that will echo through the ages. Stephen, however, despite that generational trauma, or perhaps because of it, plays Lindra, who is a former Templar novice turned adventuring knight.
And the conscience of the party.
The anti-conscience of the party. The brutal reptile brain of the party. Is that it would be, and you know what? Just to add a bit more antagonism in the group, it'd be lovely to have some art for Alindra up.
She's changed.
John,
no, she hasn't changed up.
John gave a shit about his own art, right? About Arendar, and then just switched off.
I was too busy plugging my headphones in because I forgot they weren't automatically plugged in until I realized I wasn't wearing them.
Sounds like backpedaling to me. Stephen, so what did real Santa get you for the festive period?
Like socks, like the usual shit.
The usual shit. Yeah. Stephen's too old to get real presents now. So there we go. All right, let's bring on Sam and bring this absolute fucking shambles to a close. I swore in the first 10 minutes of a stream. Oh well. Thanks anyway, YouTube. So Sam plays Askarai, Changeling, Ranger, Scout, quick with an arrow, especially sometimes to his friends' backs. Sam, Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you too.
What present did you get while you were away?
I got given the good fortune to be last being brought on so that I could think of an answer to the Santa Claus question. Nice. And secondly, a lot of excitement about the upcoming restart of Symbaroum.
Oh, on brand. On brand. Stam is not a brand risk, folks. He has taken the corporate memo of Tale and Tales to heart.
It really made me laugh, the idea that like you swear once in the beginning of a YouTube video and YouTube like, well, I guess that's an hour of free content for us guys.
I guess that's all he's going to do.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Thanks for all the content. Here's no money forever. Good luck.
Yeah. I don't like. I'm pretty sure YouTube does it. I don't know if Twitch does it as well. But I've done it now, so fuck it. Right? Let's just say as many swear words in the next 3 seconds. Never mind. That'll have to do. That'll have to do, folks. All right, so here we go. Let's start talking about the events of the last few sessions. I'll skim over the story as a whole very, very broadly. So you as a group have arrived in Indaros, partly through happenstance and partly through kind of like a general desire to be here to investigate some more about the lost ruins of Symbar that you've discovered. But your time here has sort of been a little bit sidelined so far due to the Cathedral of Martyrs, the vast temple worshipping the sun god of Prios, being smashed into oblivion by meteors falling from the sky in a very dramatic fashion, and when you were nearby as well. Funny that these things always seem to happen near you, like it's almost like you're not NPCs or something. You went to investigate, found a bunch of people who'd been possessed by some kind of fire spirits, found some big mysterious giants who'd seemed to have crawled out of the ground, and managed to make your way into the cathedral and rescue the only living person you found in there, who turned out to be the Archduchess Esmeralda, the Queen's younger sister, who you managed to save her leg as well, which was in danger of being crushed, and made your way outside. She then essentially commissioned you in a very informal fashion, basically said she didn't trust that the authorities would do a good job investigating this, They have like their own motives and their own agenda, and sent you back into the cathedral and the surrounding area in order to investigate and perhaps find out who had presumably this is some form of mystical attack, and to find out who'd done this. You found a number of things in and around the cathedral, as well as the presence of there was already the presence of the Panzars and the elf Ilori and various other bits, the death of the Grandmaster Seldonio. But you also found within the cathedral a number of interesting things. You found that one of the Theurg who was carrying out the ceremony, it had been like a rehearsal for the marriage of Esmeralda, and one of the Theurg's assistants seemed to have some odd, slightly incriminating stuff on them. But you also found certain evidence that their body had been moved, which raised one or more of you to, like, provoked one or more of you to raise the potential that these were actually planted rather than genuine. You also found an extra body that you did not expect to find, a mysterious individual who a couple of you remembered as having seen on the plateau of Carvosti months and months ago. Not sure what that's all about. And you also found outside the presence of two individuals who seem to have been killed leaving the scene, or at least wandering around the scene. They had a number of strange things on them. They had a letter with very odd, obtuse instructions. They had Ordo Magica symbols hanging around their necks, although they weren't dressed in that manner. And between them and the body that may or may not have incriminating evidence on it in Cathedral, you found two links to the noble house Viara, a very potent noble house, often in direct competition with the crown and House Corinthia, and in fact also some of the black sheep of their family recently responsible for the separation of the Templars from the Sun Church as well. You found certain evidence pointing towards their involvement, perhaps. It's unclear at this stage. Maybe even more intriguing was that the meteor had opened up a crater in the base of the Cathedral of Martyrs, and on investigating that, you found a kind of sub-basement / dungeon, prison, comfy bedroom, all of the above area in which you suspect that someone had been kept in a very comfortable prison, and there were certain clues in there that had perhaps made you think unusual thoughts towards who might be in there. There was a certain amount of evidence that they had maybe come from the country of Lyastra to the east of Alberator, which is also where the Dark Lords had come from. And there was also a certain amount of evidence, assumed evidence, that this was a person who was capable of painting a picture of the young Queen Corinthia before she was mutilated by her imprisonment. The imprisonment, of course, carried out by the Dark Lords. And I think the only other thing is that Sam nabbed a mystical lamp, essentially, or what appears to be a mystical lamp. I think that's basically it. I say basically, but I think that was very impressive of me. Is there anything anyone wants to add or clarify?
Well, we had a chat with the elf who was around the thing as well, and I also had a dream as our kind of cliffhanger at the last session, so that was also foreboding and worrying.
The cliffhanger was definitely a few sessions ago. That was, I believe, your cliffhanger with the dream was you were asleep as the ship was pulling into.
Oh, of course, yes. But I remember why, because I have a note in my head that's obviously becoming more important now that just the proximity is.
Yeah,
it's like when you're watching a TV show and there's the previously on and most of its last episode, and then there's this one scene from like 5 episodes ago.
Foreshadowing.
That's
why am I being reminded of this?
That's going to come up in this episode then. All right, Lost. Yeah. Absolutely. So I believe the cliffhanger last time was you were basically all on your way out of that crater and were kind of like talking amongst yourselves and drawing you weren't exactly coming to any conclusions, but you were certainly like that some of the things you saw in that place seem very inconvenient for you to have seen, perhaps.
Yeah. I think it ended with a note, didn't it?
Yeah.
It did. You know, you're right. It ended with a note. And while we're on that topic, why don't we bring up that note? I think that would be a very good idea. Such a good idea that I haven't actually brought it up. But there we go. That note says, oh God, I'm going to have to find it in the book because there's a certain amount of, hey, let's write this in actual handwriting and make it more characterful. Going on, secure prisoner together. M and L directly to Barlack with prisoner. S and F cover/plant tracks. Fina's bakery, cellar entrance. Follow B's directions to hideout. Wait no more than 4 glasses. If A does not show, leave city with prisoner. So that is the notes you found. And you know what? I'm as you were doing this, I also pointed out, I believe, that there was a larger force of Panzers just arrived to the west of where you are, along with a grand-looking Theurg and a sun mask and a number of novice attendants. They are definitely now looking in your direction in a very what are those people doing kind of way. So I don't know whether you want to stay where you are, whether you want to engage with them, or whether you want to go back to Esmeralda at this point. I would say, and again, I used this last time as a kind of justification for telling you you're done in a place, or not done in a place, but I think it's valid. Your characters would know that you think, because I'm not saying you got everything. There were definitely some vigilant rolls that weren't made. But as far as your characters are concerned, I think you now believe you have covered the interior of the cathedral and all of the square outside the cathedral. I think your characters would think there is nothing left to see.
Just on this note, would we know what is meant by 4 glasses as like a measurement of time? Is that 4 hours? Is it?
No, that entirely depends on the glass. It is specifically a way that you could write about a time frame without giving away the time frame.
Okay.
Right? Because they will know what the glasses are because they know what glass they're using. As far as like how big an hourglass could be, it's unlikely to be more than a day. You do get hourglasses that will run for a day. So it's entirely
How about Barlack though? Is that something? Does that ring a place? Does that ring any geography bells?
It doesn't, but if you all give me a cunning roll, and Arendar will get a +3 to this roll.
Elindra passes.
Yeah, that's great too.
Arendar's pass.
Theo is none the wiser. The other 3 of you don't recognize the name itself, but it certainly sounds like a dwarf name. Their names often are like a 2-syllable thing, and there are a lot of K's in their names often. So it sounds like a dwarf name to you, and there are plenty of dwarves in Indaros.
Does Fina's bakery ring a bell to me in any way?
You know what? You can give me a cunning roll as well. Take a +1 to this one, let's say, because for your years in Indaros.
I pass. 7 under 8.
Awesome. Fina's bakery. It's a small bakery in the Bohemian Quarter. You know where it is. It's not a dwarven bakery, as far as you're aware.
I think I know the bakery this refers to.
Can anybody think of a good reason why we don't have to go to the bakery and follow this line and can instead go to the pub or to a bed We can't do that, can we?
We could report back to the Duchess and hope that she sends Panzers instead of us.
Right, but we're under time pressure. And we're not sure to what extent we can trust the Panzers, or in fact anybody around the Duchess.
And speaking of Panzers, there are a good maybe 3 or 4 of them walking in your direction from the group that just came into the square, accompanied by the Theurg.
We got about 30 seconds to decide what we're telling these people.
Let's tell them that we're leaving. I need to go get my armor.
Yeah,
I'm not doing any more of today without my armor.
Don't we need to go back to the Duchess? Do we tell them we went to the Duchess? Are we keeping this quiet? Yeah. Okay.
We're leaving.
Let's go and talk to the Duchess, and then let's go and get Alindra in plate.
Okay. The Panzers are now coming up to you, and the leader of them, they all look very similarly. It's very difficult to tell a Panzer's rank from looking at them, but he is a large man, and he's walking in front of the others, and he says, "You, what is your business here? What were you doing with those bodies?"
We were investigating them.
What caused you have to do that?
We were asked to by the Duchess herself.
The Duchess Esmeralda, she lives.
She is, was it on the south side? She's on the south side with another party of Panzers, I believe.
So if we all stroll around there together, she will be there and vouch for you?
I believe so, unless she has left. She was quite injured and in need of medical attention, but she seemed determined to stay.
And your name is?
Arendar, sir.
All right, Sadar, lead on.
I will do just that.
Okay. I take it we're not discussing things among ourselves while the Panzers are there.
Yeah, maybe not.
So they kind of stroll around, and there is a visible relaxing in the Panzer's shoulders, all 4 of them, when they round and see a group of Panzers and what seems to be the Sun Duchess Esmeralda lying on the floor receiving some medical treatment from Anton, and also a couple of other novices that are there now. And they kind of walk up, and the Panzer leading kind of inquires after the Duchess's health. She reassures them that all is fine, and that yes, you were you had pulled her out of the cathedral and were investigating on her behalf. He kind of nods and says, "My apologies then."
No apologies needed, sir. You were simply doing your job.
I appreciate that, Sadar. He nods, and they walk. They actually start walking on the side of the cathedral and like peering inside to kind of like get a read on it. Esmeralda turns to the various people surrounding her and essentially kind of like asks the Panzers who are watching over to says she will be safe with you, asks the Panzers to retreat to their group, who are kind of stood sort of watching the giants, who are still stood around the rift in the ground that most of them seem to come out of, and kind of shoos away the other novices. Her leg is thoroughly wrapped now and kind of like braced with just kind of slightly scorched and broken wood that's been pulled from some rubble nearby, and Anton is kind of tending to it. Esmeralda says, my brave heroes, tell me, what have you found?"
I'm going to glance at the others with a kind of a look that's like, we've got no reason not to tell her everything, right? Like I'm looking to see if anybody's like, no.
This is an Arendar decision. I'm gonna step back and let the child do the politic.
I have no reason. Well, I don't want to put her in danger, but I have no reason to think she is being dishonest with us, and also that her knowing information might get her to get us more information. So I'm going to be straightforward, and I'm going to list out the things that we found.
Absolutely everything. No, nothing left uncovered. I have a rough list of things here. Shall I go through them just to double check?
Let's do
Yes.
that.
Because I made this as a list of kind of leads or potential leads. So there's an extra person in the cathedral,
Mhm.
and you think it's someone you knew or had seen at least on Karvosti.
Mhm.
There is the small statue. There is the fact that there's a prison, or it seems to be some kind of prison, right?
Yep.
There's the statue and the painting you found there that have, or the statue has certain connotations, certainly. Not necessarily entirely incriminating, but it certainly has connotations. There's also a painting of what appears to be her sister there, which is unusual. You have the let me get precisely what you found on the body. 1 second. You find a long thin dagger. Found a long thin dagger on her body, a leather pouch containing 4 shiny gold coins. And the dagger on its hilt is decorated with a golden bird of prey, a diving bird of prey, which is the Viara family sigil. You also found the letter, which obviously is instructions for the removal of prisoner and the covering up of the removal of the prisoner. That is also printed on House Viara paper. You found that they appeared to be members of the Order Magica, or at least were wearing symbols of the Order Magica. I think that's all the kind of relevant stuff, right? A lot of the rest of it was just like finding out what happened or people arriving and stuff. I think that was essentially all the quote unquote leads that you found.
Yes.
I'm
going to not mention the statue and the orb because those are currently in Steo and Askarai's possession.
Sure.
And they want them. So I won't tell them about that.
Fair enough.
Everything else.
Stephen, were you going to add something to that list?
I was also going to say that around that, like during that part of the investigation, there was also the conversation with the elf, although I imagine that might also be a thing that we don't mention.
It was definitely before you found Esmeralda as well, I think. Oh, maybe it wasn't. Maybe
I think we saw him before and spoke to him afterwards.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, especially because the conversation with the elf starts to bring on questions that you might not want to be answered. Okay, so unless we want to miss any of that out, all of that is relayed to Esmeralda, correct? Okay.
Yes.
So to be clear, you mention that you think you recognize the man in the cathedral. Okay.
Yes.
He's supposedly working for her husband to be, right? Like,
oh well, that is definitely an assumption that could be made. Like, if he's Ambrian, but was associated. You definitely saw him multiple times with the High Chieftain, and her groom who has died is the High Chieftain's son. So
yeah.
It's certainly not outside the realms of possibility. She shakes her head and says, "This sounds like a terrible mess. Please, could you work together with the good Panzer captain over there? Please bring each of these 4 anomalous bodies to me so I can see if any of them are familiar to me in any way. The extra man in the cathedral, the woman with the incriminating dagger on her person, and the 2 bodies to the north of the cathedral. Could you see that those are brought to me, please?"
Of course.
Okay. Obviously, the 2 bodies in the roof has kind of stopped collapsing now, right? Everything that's come down, not maybe everything, but most of what is going to come down has come down. I don't particularly feel the need to go into this in detail. You know, you work, you engage the services of the Panzer captain, who is named Livia Arabelle, and before long, the 4 bodies are kind of like brought near to the Sun Duchess and start to be arrayed in front of her. As this is happening, you hear the trooping of many feet, and even more Panzers arrive, and a great many City Watch. There are probably around 200 individuals starting to kind of stomp their way into the square around the cathedral from the direction from which you came originally. At the head of them is an absolute truck of a huge human being, massive. In the film adaptation, he's definitely played by kind of 1980s Arnie. He's huge. He's got graying hair. He's kind of getting along a bit in years now, but like you would not want to engage in a fist fight with this man. Arendar, let's give you a cunning roll at +5, I think. It's a very well-known individual in Inderos.
Pass. Definite pass.
This is the head of the Inderos City Watch. He's called Alvo Steelneck. And he's called that because not on one, but on several occasions, people have tried to cut his head off and it didn't take. You don't know why. There are many rumors and stories about how that could happen. To be clear, it's not his head got cut off and then got it's that people tried to cut through his neck and, you know, the blade didn't go in properly, or
yeah,
you can imagine. Looking at his neck, you can imagine how that could happen.
Is it neck wider than his head? Kind of John Cena levels, kind of.
Yeah, he's like 50% Arnie from the 80s, 50% Brock Lesnar. We're talking, you know. But a bit older than that might imply. And he's already kind of like giving orders. The City Watch are moving swiftly to form a proper perimeter. And as the bodies are being arrayed, he kind of like comes up to the group of you standing around. The Panzers are around you now. Like Esmeralda has not sent anyone away again, right? So now you have got quite a bit of an audience now. Including the Panzer captain, her troop. The giants are still just stood there over by the rift, looking relatively non-threatening. Steelneck kind of approaches, and on seeing the Duchess on the ground, he drops very heavily to one knee and says, "Duchess, I am glad to see you alive. Master Steelneck, yes, please. My leg is badly wounded, but I shall be safe, thanks to the efforts of these brave individuals, and of course to the Panzers, and now your City Watch as well." Steelneck nods and says, "That is generous of you, Duchess, but I feel like we have failed." "No. How could you have imagined that this would happen? Please, stand." He nods and gets to his feet. It doesn't take a vigilant roll to see there is a kind of genuine. He means those words. He obviously feels that this is very personal for him. He kind of glances at the bodies on the ground, and Esmeralda says, "These are individuals being brought here. Not all of them are here just yet. The 2 from the cathedral are kind of being carried out of the front, and they took the longest because just being careful inside there, right? These are individuals perhaps of interest. Obviously they will be handed over to the City Watch momentarily, but please, if I may, look at them and see if I have any knowledge or recognition of them." Steelneck kind of nods, seats. You know, this seems like perhaps a job he would have to do anyway, and gestures for them to be brought forward. They are all arrayed in front of Esmeralda, and as they are Can we please all make a vigilant roll at -5?
I would only succeed on a 1, and I did not get it.
I did get a 1.
Nice.
Ninja does succeed.
I got a 10, which just makes it.
Okay.
Theo did not succeed.
Elindra and Askarai then, as the bodies are laid out, there is a notable twitch from Esmeralda when seeing the mysterious extra person from inside the cathedral. She then kind of looks very examines them all carefully and says, "I'm sorry, I have no knowledge of any of these." You're on mute, Chris. I saw you talking there.
Yeah, I'm just making a snide comment about nobles and their secrets.
Steelneck seems, he's not going to press the second most, famous, if not powerful, member of the House Kohinoor on this matter, and he nods and says, "Not to worry, my Duchess, who even if the orchestrators of this are known to you, it is unlikely that they would use pawns that you might recognize. The men and women of the City Watch will get to the bottom of it. Now," he gestures, and the bodies are wrapped, lifted, carried away. Out of interest, did you keep anything? I think you probably kept the letter that you found. Did you keep, for example, the Viara dagger and the pouch of coins?
I think Askrai has the dagger. Not 100% sure about the coins, but I think he did take the dagger.
Okay.
Well, someone's got the letter now. We didn't leave that, did we?
No, I think I can't remember. It was at the end of last session who had the letter. Anyone can have the letter, though. It's fine.
I think maybe Askrai did have the coins.
Maybe.
But there's something strange about the coins. Were they like not marked?
Yeah,
somehow?
they're not.
Oh,
minted.
yeah.
They're not. Yeah, they're not minted.
Yeah, I think Askrai does have them.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So those are kind of taken away. You Steelneck nods and kind of like he turns to the Duchess and says, "I realize you may have further business with your rescuers, Duchess, but I must insist at this stage that this place be turned over to the City Watch, and the Panzars and you yourself should be taken to a place where you can receive expert medical attention." The Duchess says, "Of course, you are right, Master Steelneck. Friends, my rescuers, you will hear from some of my assistants in the morning. In the meantime, please feel free to set about the work I have passed on to you."
A polite bow from Steel.
At this point, a proper kind of trying to find the word, not gurney, that's got wheels, stretcher has been located, and she is gently moved onto it with a minimum of pained noises and carried away. She gives an extra thank you to Antom and Elindra, the former for taking care of her leg and the latter for being the one who carried her out to the cathedral, and then she is kind of taken away. Steelneck kind of watches her go, and then turns around and gives like a curt gesture to another member of the City Watch behind him. He kind of has a locked small chest slung around their torso, and they kind of open it up and rifle through it. There seem to be various things in it. You see papers, you see some coins, you see some keys. You see various things. Steelneck reaches into it, grabs a sheaf of papers and kind of like flicks through them, seems to think a moment, and then draws 5 papers, hands them to each of you, and says, "You are not, I think, natives of Indaros. Where are you staying?" You're staying at a place called the Tower, if you wish to give him the actual information.
I don't think it's a good idea to lie to the captain of the guard, so I will say the Tower.
Interesting. I may have questions later. Please make yourselves available. Do not think, however, that I believe that you staged meteors crashing into the ground in order to curry favor with the Duchess. You are not at this point under suspicion. In fact, with the thanks of the city guard, he passes you kind of writs that each valued at 100 thaler. That's quite a lot of money. I mean, you've seen more money, but it's quite a lot of money, certainly. These can be cashed in at various places around the city. You who spoke, you have an Indaros accent. You'll know where to take them, won't you?
I do say yes.
Where are you from?
Right here, sir. I was
Where? Where, though?
The camp for most of my upbringing.
He kind of looks at your clothes up and down and goes, "You did well for yourself."
I had some generosity along the way, sir.
Might I have your names before you go?
Arindar.
The Dars are dead, boy.
And yet I live, sir.
The others of you?
Elindra.
Steo.
That's great.
Father Anton gives his, and I'm assuming Revelia also gives hers.
Yep.
Interesting. Farewell. Thank you for your service for the Duchess.
If I may say one further thing, Captain, there was an individual
Commander.
when we approached. Commander, apologies. There was an individual who sadly struck down the master of the Order Magica and then made off north. We were quite injured at the time and couldn't follow him, but...
All right. We will make a note of it. I had heard from others that this individual was... he glances over at the giants.
Not quite the same, I think, but yes.
Are you saying that because of a failed roll?
I'm saying that because I thought I remembered something different about him. No, in that case,
The different
yes.
thing was that he was killing the Grandmaster of the Order Magic.
And
Other
wasn't
than
he
that,
blind?
no, that's the one who came and spoke to them did we make that roll? Spoke to them in a language many of you did not understand?
Someone did.
I think
It's the one
Anton
was
did.
understanding
Anton made
a
that
little
roll
bit.
that he spoke in Symbaric. Yeah. Okay. No, it was one of them otherwise. Either way, the commander seems happy for you to all leave at this point.
I think if I'm probably going to be leading the group at this point in a desire to get away as quickly as possible.
That is fair enough.
To the tower.
Pint at the tower.
You can certainly order drinks at the tower. Yeah. Okay. As you leave the area around the Cathedral of Martyrs, there definitely seems to have been a kind of cordon set up by the City Watch, a little ways from the cathedral, a ways enough that you cannot see the cathedral from where it is. You are allowed through there. One of the City Watch actually accompanies you to there, thinking about it, because otherwise, how would the City Watch there know to let you out? But you are let out there. There are a great many people milling in the streets in the immediate area around the Cathedral of Martyrs, and lots of them kind of ask you questions as you go through. I assume we're not being particularly forthcoming, but I don't know.
Not saying a word.
Yeah.
Very wise. Once you pass through them, however, the streets are remarkably empty for Indaros. Everyone seems to have retreated to their homes or other safe places, and walking across the city, the time it takes you is greatly reduced by the emptiness of the streets, albeit it's something of a slightly eerie walk. On the way, one of the many town criers who pace through Indaros is shouting out the latest news, I suppose. Although the town criers are that they're not, hired by a periodical of any kind. They are, the authorities' way of transmitting information to the masses, and you pass one calling out, "Indaros in a state of emergency. Curfew in force between midnight and the 5th glass of the morning. All violations to be punished severely." In this context, 5th glass means 5 o'clock in the morning. But glass.
What time is it now?
Can refer to. Well, you met for. You met the individual at noon, I believe. The guy you were getting info off. Crap info. So I guess it's a question of how much time has passed. I'm going to say it's now 2 hours after that. Those were a very busy 2 hours with very little downtime, So, yeah. Anyway, you reach the tower. The area around it is very quiet. Are we engaging in this? Sorry, Stephen.
Sorry, I just wanted to get a sense on the walk to the tower of how far the kind of chaos had spread, right? So the square is going to be carnage and dust and blood and stuff.
That's very good question. So on the streets immediately around the cathedral, you see while the actual direct destruction is mainly limited to the immediate circle of buildings surrounding the cathedral. For example, other things you find in the street surrounding it is that every window has been blown out. So there's broken glass everywhere. You see bodies scattered around considerably. Some of them look burnt and battered. Others of them look like they've been cut down with weapons. Most of them who look like that had City Watch or Panzers stood near them. So they were presumably, and some of those bodies weren't human. Some of them were animals. So presumably those were the fire possessed. There's a great deal of them in the streets around the area. Let's do a bit of the old map work, shall we? That's a bit. Is that a bit cluttered compared to that, or is that a good thing? Yeah, I don't know. Let's use this. Let's use this map. Okay, I don't know how perceivable that is, but this is a good indicator of obviously a bit of a crow's eye view of Indaros. Can we make out the temple, which is there on the right, in the center of the right-hand page?
So this map is upside down compared to the one that we were looking at before, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is, unfortunately. Would we prefer the other map? I can flip the other map. I can put the other map up if we think that's better.
I think this is
I am pointing right at the temple, if that helps. It doesn't help.
Okay. Yeah, but everyone can see the temple with its golden dome, right? Yeah. Now, finding the tower is going to be more difficult. If you look, obviously you can see where the palace and on the hill is. If you look near the central line between the two pages, almost dead center, you may be able to make out a building that looks taller than others. That's a couple of buildings below the palace.
Can I just do one thing that might make this easier?
Sure. Okay, yeah. I'm
Nope,
guessing
that
you
way.
guys can't see the numbers. I'm guessing it's not big enough. To see
Just about. Is it 17?
It is 17. Yes, absolutely. But anyway, if you look at the very center on the left of the page line, that is around where the tower is.
Got it.
I would say by the time you reach you see where there's a long street that runs north-south, about halfway between the tower and the cathedral. It's just a long street that runs from like near the palace to down by the dock. That's around the point the fire-possessed bodies and the other bodies stop happening. So about halfway to the tower, so not an inconsiderable distance. There are still bodies scattered around, and obviously the further east you go, the more spread out and sparse they are. But certainly, the actual destruction of the meteors seems to be largely limited to the streets around the cathedral, but the scattered death and destruction caused by the fire-possessed rolls a lot further through. And at this point, I will switch to the other map just to be confusing. So a great deal through. Remember, this is flipped. You can still see the temple on the left there. You can see there, like the temple district, the northern artisans district, seem to have been, and presumably Newtown, and the southern temple district, you'd imagine, copped for some of it as well. You haven't walked through those. Seem to have been highly affected. You know, there are bodies. There are a few burned buildings, where the fire possessed presumably set fire to them, and like burned carts and various wooden things. Yeah, does that answer your question? Grand.
Yes.
Grand.
I think Steo in a hushed voice, not exactly shouting it, but to the group at least, will say, this is more or less a bloody apocalypse. Was there anything like this in your time, Aaron? I can't imagine the city goes into this kind of state normally.
Are you asking whether a meteorite has ever attacked Indros before?
Half the city the meteorite blew up the temple. Half the city these fire possessed got into.
No, there's been nothing like that, as far as I remember.
I am not going to a city ever again after this.
Yeah.
Indros has certainly seen its share of bloodshed and bad stuff over the years. Like there've been like outbreaks of there is a particular, I believe, like a massacre of refugees called the Bloodbath, where 3,000 refugees were put to the sword a number of years ago. I don't think it actually says when in this, and that's probably the most notably violent episode in Indros's 25-year history. But yeah, this might have had a lower death toll, but it's certainly more maybe unusually dramatic.
Yes.
It does feel like we're a bit of a bad omen when it comes to arriving in cities or new places.
Wrong place at the wrong time.
You think it's us? You think it's not just that. This is what happens in cities.
I mean, I've lived in a city for most of my life, and this is the second time this has happened to me.
Well, then maybe it's us. Maybe it's the heroes of the sinkholes.
Oh, please don't say that even in jest. I'm sick of that.
You know that somebody else.
And yet still, do you know what's worse than that, Alindra? Once again, we're on the hook for doing sneaky shit. I'm sick of it.
At least we're getting paid well this time, right from the jump.
Yeah.
$100 each.
I never trust jobs where I get paid in advance. Come on, let's get that pint and then get out to this breadcrumb trail.
While we're on the subject and out of earshot of anybody in the tower, you all spotted, right, that Esmeralda was lying to us.
When?
When she said that she didn't know any of the bodies. She did. That Ambrine attaché? that you saw on Carvosti? She knows him.
I agree.
And she said she didn't. Just so you're aware.
That was another thing picked up off a body, right? You found a wooden, it's like kind of wooden key ring, right?
Yeah.
On his body, I believe, with a carved X on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Theo has that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I would judge that now you've probably. I'm not going to narrate. You go up that elevator on the outside of the tower again. The ogre pulling you all the way up to your rooms where you go in. They've been refreshed since you've been out. There is fresh food and drink laid out for you. Quite nice stuff as well. Lots of it fresh, and all your kind of. Because you have slept overnight here, haven't you? Yeah, it was yesterday or even the day before that you arrived.
Mm-hmm.
All your beds have been kind of remade with fresh linens. The place has been cleaned. It's pleasant. You think the air has been faintly scented with something that smells of cherries.
Is there like a sink or somewhere that I can wash without taking a full bath?
Yes, there are baths, but with like water presented and a bell next to them if you want hot water brought up. But yeah, there are washing sinks that have cold water in, and also there is like a trough to pour them out into and a jug to refill.
Great. I will quickly wash and put armor on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and soap and stuff.
Yeah.
I will also wash, and I'm trying to remember who has done medicus checks on me so far, because I'm quite injured. Steo has tried and failed when I was in charge of him.
Okay.
I don't think Antom has yet.
Then go for it. Go for it. Ask. You're handling Antom's roles, right,
Yeah.
Sam?
I can do it.
Go for it.
That is a 9, which passes.
Excellent.
Cool. So
What am I rolling for the healing? Is it a D6?
I
D8?
think Phantom is a D4 unless he's using a pouch. Or is it...
Yeah, I think if he's using a herbal cure, it's a D6. Otherwise, it's a D4.
I am out of herbal cures, so I'll go for a D4.
So point of order, like Elindra and Revelia are both in a bad way, but also I'm fairly sure they've both had medical attention from.
I think they have.
Cool.
Have you made I think you've also made your recovery roll for the day.
Oh yeah. So I don't recall ever seeing rules on this, but presumably, like, we're not just going to spam the heal button, right? It's like a once a day type thing. You're on mute.
Yeah. It's I think we came up with this rule before you joined, so maybe we haven't ever. Maybe it's always been kind of unspoken, but we reached a kind of general agreement that anyone with distinct medicus could make a roll on someone after they had a source of injury.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yeah.
So they can never repeat the roll. So even tomorrow, like, because you haven't been hurt again. You could have an extra medicus roll from someone new, but Antom and Steo can only make one medicus roll after a source of damage has been taken.
That completely makes sense and is also terrifying. But yeah, sure.
I might make exceptions if there are two really distinct sources of damage that have happened at the same time.
Fair,
but otherwise.
Is this a new scene for the purposes of corruption and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. And you can all start losing corruption now that you've left the whatever weird fucking corruption field thing was around the cathedral.
It just resets, doesn't it? Temporary corruption.
Yeah. Temporary all just drops to nothing.
Is there? Did we get a sensation that we had left like a not exactly that way, but
you did, and I should have mentioned that. Yeah, all of you felt like a sort of, I think I described it as a kind of like tingling heat when you're in the area. You all felt that like sort of slide off you, particularly Alindra and Anton.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was it extended around a street around the Cathedral of Martyrs. So, which is exactly how it felt when you went in. Just in case you were worried, it sounded like it was changing size or something.
So,
Getting some drinks delivered.
Yeah, they're on their way, or they've arrived. Whatever, you know.
Right, we gotta go to the bakery.
We do.
Yeah, well, you got to be careful. I think this might be the first thing that we've come across that really feels above our pay grade. Really,
this is the first thing
in terms of like a specific.
Since we've arrived in Indaros is the first thing. But
I think there were times, with the armies and stuff where I felt like we were in over our heads. But there was never like a particular thing that I was afraid of, but someone who can cool down a meteor, like seems a little bit different.
Sure, I don't know anybody who is qualified to deal with that.
Asprey also makes another good point in that we just saved the whole city in the west of the country and spent a month there doing significant work, and in the course of 2 hours have received the same amount of pay again for accidentally rescuing a damsel in distress.
The Duchess, though, I was feeling quite good about having rescued the Duchess and about having done some things in the investigation for her, because I'm like, okay, we've arrived at a big city. We've immediately become embroiled in Ambrian politics again. But among all the times that we've found ourselves embroiled with Ambrian politics, this seemed to be the most straightforward, right? Like, we'd helped somebody. There was no like opposing force that we were trapped in the middle of. Like, we did a good thing. We could continue to do good things and feel good about ourselves. And then she looked me in the eye and lied to me.
Yeah.
And now I think we're going to still do it, but I don't feel good anymore.
This is kind of what happens when you do good deeds for nobles. There's always a catch.
But we're going to the bakery, aren't we? Because of course we're going to the bakery.
We gotta.
I think we should go find a healer first.
That sounds like an excellent idea. Is there... Indaros, what's here? Where can we go?
There are healers on many streets. Like there's, you're in the Harbour District where fights happen. Like there's, it won't take. Finding a healer with their doors open right now might be another question, given how shut down the city seems to be. But other than that,
yeah, I'm imagining going anywhere church affiliated would currently be a bit of a no-go. Yeah, I think I probably know some healers along the waterfront.
Can that be on the way to the bakery?
Yes, it's sort of on the way to the Bohemian district. North and then west.
Put some metal on Alindra.
Already done.
And no one is allowed to make fun of me for wearing armor all the goddamn time anymore. Prius's teats, oh my god.
This is never coming off again.
So I would like a cunning roll for Anton, please. And you can give him a +3 for it, Sam.
Okay. That is an 18, which fails.
Okay, never mind. All right. Are we basically having a drink, getting our armor on, getting washed, and going straight out again. We're not taking an opportunity to rest or anything.
I think we're on the clock.
Yeah, we don't have
Oh,
time.
yeah. What does 4 glasses mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we have a copy of that note on sent to us privately, so that we've got?
Sure.
There were a lot of initials, and
I wrote it down. I'll stick it in the place.
And I will gladly post the thing of it. There we go.
thank you.
Okay.
Perfect.
So presumably we leave the tower again, out onto the relatively empty harbour streets. The harbour is certainly a bit more busy than other areas. Some things can't stop there. It's no business of ship captains what has happened in the city. Stuff still needs offloading. As you wander the streets, you certainly, let's say, give me a, you know what? I'm going to say that everyone can make a vigilant roll at -4, except for Arindar, it's a -2, to find an open healer's emporium. Suddenly, Sam with the high vigilant has stepped away. It's 17, though, if someone wants to roll for him. Well, obviously for this, it'll be 13.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was
Okay.
a 9.
Askarai spots a healer's emporium with a nervous-looking woman still stood in the doorway and kind of looking around. She doesn't look to have too much money, which is perhaps why she's still open. But she seems amenable to having a look at anyone who requires it. Let me find a bit of a cost. And also exactly what she is capable of.
Don't forget a nice little bit of post-disaster gouging.
Yes. Trying to find a cost for a healer. But Medicus. 1 shilling plus cost for any alchemical preparations. Seeing how banged up you are and the thing of the city, she is going to charge 5 shillings each. You can blame Chris for reminding me of disaster profiteering. So anyone who wants healing can take that. And I'm going to say she's just going to use lay on hands.
Alindra and Revelia are both going to pay 6 shillings for the 5 shilling gouge.
Okay. As a tip. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Both of you can take a d6 of toughness back.
I will follow suit. I will also pay the 6 because we have the money at the moment, and I know it's hard to live in Indaros.
Okay. Shall we have a quick round of what people's toughness is like then? Because that seems like a good thing to do after a bit of a group heal, as it were. So starting on our left, John, what's your toughness at?
I'm on 13 out of 15.
Bad.
And you know what? I will pay another 5 shillings for Farron.
Okay, yeah. She looks a bit nervous about putting her hands on him, but
he is now back up to full at 10 out of 10.
He remains mostly capable of not snapping at her. Sam?
Askray is on 10 out of 10.
And what about Anton?
I think Anton is also on full health, as far as I know.
Stephen, how are Alindra and Revelia looking now?
This is Matt just mentally calibrating the next scene. Alindra's on 13 out of 20. Revelia is on 7 out of 15.
So not much brought up by that.
She was on 2, and the healer added 5.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Steo, how about yourself?
Steers back to a full 13.
Of course, it's up to your discretion, Alindra, if you feel that Revelia is too hurt. Obviously, perfectly within liberty to tell her to remain behind at the tower. In which case, I guess take this healing or send her back from here. Like if she still seems really battered even after the healers done their work on her.
Yeah, I think she will. I think there's a duty of care there, and I think even like saying, yeah, come into this fight and stand behind me is like she needs to go to bed.
Yeah.
So yes, we'll send Revelia away.
Revelia seems disappointed but obedient, and will go back to the tower and asks if you have any tasks that she can complete while you are away.
I will try and sort of cheer her up a bit by spinning it as there in case the commander needs to get in contact with us. He'll be our
And please don't tell him where we've actually gone.
Yes. I was about to say a message handler, but that makes it sound worse.
Yeah. Revelia, it's your
Point
job
of
to lie
contact.
to the commander of the city guard.
Yes.
Good luck.
Nice. Okay. You then proceed onwards through the largely empty streets, through the Northern Artisans District, past. I can imagine like the riverfront artisans shops will largely be nautical in nature. People making ropes, people making supplies for ships of various kinds, shipwrights available for hire to patch up hulls and the like. And then you proceed before long. Did I say the bakery was in the Bohemian district?
Yep.
The Bohemian district is, as you would expect, it would be. It's like an area of cultural stuff. There are theaters, there are galleries of various kinds, stuff like that, and also a bit more lowbrow entertainment of various kinds as well. Fina's Bakery is a few streets from the riverfront, and it is relatively easy to find, not least because Arendar knows where it is. It's a small shop facing a busy road. There is it looks like there is a rear area because there is a little kind of alleyway leading down the side of it. Through the windows on the ground floor, you can all see at least 5 people moving around inside the bakery. They all have sweaty faces that are white with flour. And there is not a cat, despite what you think you can hear.
Cellar entrance is what the letter said.
I think we need to consider very carefully that this might be a trap. It was the only place named in this letter that otherwise was coded pretty strongly.
It could be that nothing is here, and this is just a starting point for the other instructions they've been given.
If I read the note correctly, this is where we would, or certainly this is where the people who the letter was addressed to would expect to find B, who would give directions to the hideout. This is not the hideout, and this is not where the prisoner is. This is where someone maybe has information.
Yeah, I agree. Could be this guy Barlack. Maybe that's B. But that could be too easy.
Yeah, everybody else is identified by letters. I think that's a code name. I don't think they would write Barlack if in the letter, if B was Barlack. Barlack sounds like a place.
I tend to agree, but I would have also thought that about Fina's Bakery. But I guess we have to try and get in the cellar and see.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Barlack and Fina's Bakery are places they didn't have pre-agreed code words for.
Maybe let's try looking around the outside first.
Yeah, I don't want to march in the front door. I think if we're going in, we're probably going in via the cellar, and I think we're probably going to end up having to, if we're lucky, intimidate somebody into giving us some information.
You're on mute, Matt.
Thank you. The alley by the side seems to lead round to the rear. Most buildings in Inderos, most Ambrian buildings in general, would tend to have their cellar door around the rear for less easy access for people. Going into the alley is definitely in view of those front windows. So all I'm saying is, because this in the past has proven to be not a terribly sneaky crew, is that it's the kind of thing where to get into that alley, anyone getting into that alley has to roll discreet.
Could we look for another entrance to the alleyway? Do we think it comes out at the other end of the street or somewhere else that we could get access to?
Like if there's a long back, you don't think there's a long back road. Like there aren't any other like access like passageways in close proximity, and the roads you've been past don't seem to have. Everything's very back to back in Inderos. It's very crowded, very built together. From what you've seen, there are like a few places that have like a little courtyard or space at the back, particularly businesses that can afford a place and where that's useful for deliveries and so forth. You would imagine this is something like that, but no. To answer your question, obviously there are other ways into the alleyway. You could climb up to the top of the buildings and go across and then climb down, but like this seems to be the only access passageway to whatever's behind the bakery.
I was going to say, how climbable is the architecture in the Bohemian district?
I mean, if you're a good climber, it's fairly climbable. It's also going to be a harder discrete roll than slipping down an alleyway to scale a building in broad daylight.
Yeah.
So may I suggest that those of us who are more au fait with being sneaky get down that alleyway while I take my loud and clanky frame in and get a couple of sweetbreads, thus creating a diversion. You scream if you need my help, and I will be right on top of it.
Like how those of us is code for Ascarai.
I mean, sounds good.
I was just going to be like basically anyone who feels like they're going to make that discreet roll.
Yeah, like
and everyone else gets a free cake.
Assuming I get down there and find a cellar door, what do you think I should do? Go in, or?
Yeah, I think a plan beforehand sounds like a good idea. I think you need to see if the door will open. I would really like you to not go down there alone.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem a bit sketchy, considering the scale of the forces we know are involved in this.
Yeah.
How about you give it a nice little listen and let us know. Give us a wave if you think it's safe, and then we'll sneak in one by one. Worst case scenario, at least we've disguised our numbers a bit.
Okay.
Are you saying so if we're in the shop, we can see Ascarai from in the shop, so he could kind of...
You definitely can't. This isn't going to be the cellar. You're looking at the front.
No, I mean, but yeah, while he's in the alley...
I'm just going in to get some
I don't think you could. You're trying to create a plan for something you don't know, which is why you're finding it difficult to reach a thing.
Ascarai can't go in on his own and then come out and tell us what's going on and then go back in.
What he can do on his own is have a quick listen and see if there are voices, and if there are no voices, then one by one.
I'm pretty sure Ascarai can make a decision on what to do when he's there.
I'll go and have a look and give it my best shot from there.
I'm going to go and buy some sweetbreads.
Okay.
Quite loudly and asking more questions than you normally would need to.
Someone in chat reckons you won't get sweetbreads in a bakery. I'm not sure of their rationale, but there's definitely sweetbreads in this bakery. Yeah, Steo, you can walk in and start, It isn't like fancy cakes or anything like that, but there's bread that's been baked up with some sugar and sorry, John.
Sweetbreads refers to calf liver.
Oh, right, as in the old term sweetbreads. They're perfectly right about that. Of course, you won't get that, but we all know that Chris was referring to
sweet rolls.
Bread that is sweet.
No, this isn't Cyrodiil. They're not called
It's
sweet
legally
rolls.
distinct.
They're not, because a sweet roll is a fucking Cinnabon, right? There's not that. Like, what there will be is bread baked with some sugar that has some sugar on top. More and lots of butter in it. Comparable to a sugared croissant, right? That'll be what it's quite similar to, but less.
That's what I'm after.
Bread.
Like a
pleasant,
yum.
Yes, a pleasant light treat.
So this exact conversation is what Alindra and Theo will be having as they walk in.
Yes. Yeah, about livers.
About what they may or may not have and what we should get.
Yeah, absolutely. And as they do that, Askray, you know what? That's a nice little distraction. I'm going to give you a discreet +2.
Okay, nice.
Because they'll be focused on the people coming into the shop. I appreciate that.
That leaves me needing a 15 or less. I get a 13. So a pass.
There we go. So even regardless of their debate about sweetbreads, you would have made it in. You find yourself going down an unremarkable alleyway. It's quite slender. Around the back is a small courtyard. It has a couple of empty crates in it that you might expect from a place probably largely used for deliveries. And it has a set of short stone steps leading down to a rickety wooden cellar door.
I'm going to head down to the cellar door and, as suggested, give a listen, see if I can hear any talking or noises inside of any kind.
Okay, give me just a standard vigilant roll. I don't see any need for any tweaks.
That is a 2.
Yep, you hear, all you hear from the other side is the sound of kind of like several sets of feet tramping around, but they're coming echoed, right? So you think you can hear people. You can't hear anything in the cellar, you don't think.
Okay, kind of from above.
Yeah, you don't think that you can hear anything from inside the cellar.
In that case, I'm going to see as quietly as I can if this cellar door is like locked.
Sure.
Or able to be opened.
Give me another discreet roll at +3.
Okay, 16 or less. That's a 20. I think I might re-roll that.
Sure.
That's not good. Okay, that's a 10.
I like the idea that it's a 20 and you kind of ease it open and there's a completely changed technology level.
No, it's just a goblin in the corner who goes whenever the door opens.
It's the door opens. It is not locked, or maybe it was latched and the latch was slightly loose. Either way, the door is opening. And it opens to reveal a relatively dark basement. It seems to be a room full of ingredients. You see sacks of flour and sugar, barrels of fresh water, jugs of milk, bags of herbs and spices, so on. It has, you can see from here, it has a floor covered in dust and a great deal of flour that seems to have a significant number of like markings in it, unintentional markings. It's a little bit of a tracker's paradise for what's been going on in this room.
Nice.
Not precisely, but like
you can see clear kind of footsteps in this floor. Okay.
So it's certainly, if you had those skills, if someone around had those kind of skills, they could definitely creep in, spend like a minute or two looking around, and maybe get a quite good idea of recent happenings in this room.
I think Astra is going to attempt to do that. Exactly that.
Absolutely. More importantly, what are Arendar and Steo ordering? You can give me a kind of relative, I'm going to use this as a chance to criticize your perception of historical baked goods, which of course I'm an expert in. So What kind of thing do you think you're going for? There are various things that they would and would not have, right? Just from, unfortunately, Stephen suggested a donut, which of course they're very unlikely to have because donuts require frying, which I believe stuff didn't really start to get fried until the 1800s. I could be wrong about that. But I remember, weirdly, I remember reading about this because I was looking at the history of fish and chips. And I don't think things tended to get fried until the 1800s, which makes sense. Like, how would people have access to that amount of oil? And a way to boil it is easy. But would they even have sugar? Says 42. They do have sugar because they're not reliant on the Columbus exchange in the same way that we are. Yes, they do have sugar.
Well, I'm waiting for Aaron Dar to go first, in fairness.
I'm trying to remember my Great British Bake Off technicals. I will go for... They've got to have some kind of an enriched, spiced bread.
Very much so.
Like hot cross buns, but obviously without the crosses, because
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't exist in Symbaroum.
Sure. I'm happy saying as well that I think Ambria has cinnamon. I think there are vast, warm plains and forests to the west of Ambria. That there are, the nearest part of them have like barbarian clans, and I'm going to say they have a great number of herbs and spices that grow in warmer places that Ambria itself might not grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to say they have something like cinnamon. So yeah. Yes.
So
I think hot Prios buns as don't kick food.
They've got a circle on instead of a cross.
It's got like a little sun on the surface.
Oh, yeah, I'll get a Prios bun. Let's go for that.
New law just dropped.
And while I'm there, I will point out, because they won't have donuts, but they might have bagels. So I will point out the weird bread with a hole in it to Steo.
Yeah, condensed bread is something they could definitely have made.
Yeah,
I don't see any reason why not.
It's a rip-off. They've taken the middle out of it.
Do we know why a lot of like casual food like that is made in shapes like rings?
So that it cooks more evenly, right?
That's part of it, but also it's very easy to carry in bulk.
That makes sense.
Right? You just literally put it all on a long stick or a pole. You can carry it around.
Right. Because Aaron has pointed this out, Steve's now going to go for a novelty bagel and basically some kind of cinnamon yum glorbo.
Sure, like a cinnamony, like a cinnamon whirl type thing, probably. They're quite easy to make. You just put the dough out in a spiral and that's that. Yeah. It's very warm in the bakery, as you might imagine. They have a big couple of ovens in the back and the heat rolls off them. And that's something I should have mentioned in the courtyard. There's probably stacks and stacks and stacks of both wood and maybe even a bit of kind of charcoal and maybe even actual coal as well. It's never exactly clear where Ambria is on the sort of Industrial Revolution timeline. But I think they're. I think the technology of Ambria is more what a lot of people would call Renaissance, leading towards the Industrial Revolution, rather than high or early medieval. I think it's a bit further along, and I'm going to say that because they have things like great swords, which are not a. I'm going to go off on one about this if I'm not careful. So we know what sweet treats have been purchased, and you'll have to wait for them. You'll have to wait a little bit for them.
Alindra was also with us, I think.
Yeah,
didn't mention that she'd gone in, but
she absolutely did.
She was the one arguing with Steo about they were actually pancreas, not livers.
Okay.
Like Prios would be sad if it was anything other than a hot Prios bun.
Hot Prios bun,
Yeah.
And Anton, of course, is going to be a good Theurg and also get a hot Prios bun. We are massively missing out on calling them sun buns.
Sunbun.
Sunbun. Sunbun.
Stop making Symbaroum cute. It's supposed to be grim.
and they're covered in blood. So
We found the one cozy bakery.
blood of the heretic.
This is our beach episode. Lap it up, lads.
Meanwhile, down below, plot is happening. So, Askarai, you are down below investigating this flour and dust on the floor. Give me, please, a vigilant test. And do you have any modifiers from your... I think you just re-roll it, right?
Yeah, I have a reroll for Pathfinder, which is to do with seeing tracks.
This is exactly that. So go ahead and take a re-roll if you need it.
That is an 11, which makes it so no need for re-rolling.
Grand. So you can see that there are a great many footprints on the floor, so many that the number of individuals cannot be determined, but a great deal of activity has happened in the last while. You definitely say in the last day, possibly in quite recently. Down here, and a number of these individuals were wearing boots that you would not associate with baking. They were wearing heavy armored boots. You can't really determine much else about it, but you do make an interesting discovery. Behind a stack of flour bags, there are tracks that suggest that someone had kind of knelt down there on their knees. Someone on their knees behind these flour bags wouldn't have been visible. They also seem to have discarded or dropped or left behind a crocheted pot holder, the top, which isn't covered in flour or dust, so is also recent. The summary of it, you would say, is there was a great deal of activity in here, and someone, presumably not someone wearing armored boots, since they were carrying a crocheted pot holder, something which you would associate with something like baking, maybe saw what was happening and hid, either to do so or they were hiding. You don't know why, but they seem to have not wanted to be seen. But they were here when it happened. That is what you would gather from this.
Okay. I'm going to take the pot holder. Do any of these tracks look giant-sized?
No.
I'm guessing no, but
no.
Okay.
No, not at all. In fact, several of them look smaller than human.
Maybe dwarf-sized.
Maybe.
Maybe. And do I get any sense of recency other than like this is today?
Not. It's difficult to tell. There's a lot of flour and dust on the floor. If you had to bet, you'd say this happened on the recent side of today.
Okay.
Maybe within the last couple of hours, for example.
Okay. After satisfying like his own curiosity, as that he's taken like a full look around and there's nothing else to find, Askar will leave and close the door as it was, as best he can, and try and get back out the alleyway.
Okay. Yeah, you managed to get out and get there without. The others are still inside, waiting for their baked goods, because they're made fresh, right? So you can go in and join them if you want. I mean, I'm sure you've reached the conclusion that it's very likely that whoever saw what happened is probably in that bakery right now.
Yeah. I think Askar might go in, like, say hi to the group, but they might go up to, like, whoever's running the bakery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a woman who's kind of, like, seems to be in charge.
And just kind of say, I found this pot holder on the floor. Is this one of your guys?
Oh, look, get over here. Come on. A small and nervous-looking goblin kind of steps out from where they've been tinkering with the side of the oven, and kind of like nervously comes forward and looks for him, sees the crochet pot holder and like freezes, looking terrified.
Is this yours? I just found it on the floor.
Yes. he's kind of looking up at you and like glancing at everyone else, trying to see if people have made some. No one has. Like the baker in charge, she like has turned away and walked off, basically, and is now busy doing other stuff. But the goblin is visibly trembling.
Just checking I caught that name right. Was that Burluck?
It was Bahuluk.
Bahuluk.
It was not the name on the.
But it was a B name.
It was a B name.
Ascar just said, "Don't worry. Here you go."
I didn't see or hear anything.
Yeah, of course. Can I just talk with you for a second? I'll like, if the other person is not paying attention, I'll slide across, I don't know, a thala to this goblin.
The goblin kind of takes a thala off you and goes, "Yes, you can talk to me."
Why don't we go just stand outside while I think all my companions are eating sunbuns? Doesn't look like anyone's ordered me one, but still, we can go outside.
I got you a nut roll. It's like a sausage roll, but it's with a nut paste. It's not historically accurate. I just made it up because I thought it sounded nice.
You have a nut paste.
Yeah.
Thanks,
made in a much more backbreaking way, but yeah.
It's more like beaten. I'm imagining like beaten up nuts wrapped in marzipan wrapped in pastry.
Yeah. Something like that. Absolutely.
I need to make that now.
Oh, thank you. Just what the doctor ordered.
The goblin kind of nods and shouts out, I'm going to get more wood. One of the bakers goes, It's just like, yeah, goblin talking. And he follows you out and kind of like scampers into the entrance to the alleyway.
So
so you don't work for the dwarf?
No, but we really need to know what you saw. No one will ever know it came from you. We just need to know.
I went down to get a bag of flour. The back door, it burst open, and two of the owner's men stepped inside. The owner, he scares me. I don't know his name or what family he's part of, but he's bad business, you know. Here in Indaros.
Lots of them are.
Yes. Lots of them are bad business here. Then it took a short while, but more company arrived. I don't know who. I don't know how many. I couldn't see anything, but I heard them. They talked about hiding a prisoner, and they asked how they could get to somewhere called Plob 17.
Plob 17.
I'm certain I heard that. They also mentioned the steam bath, you know, by the harbour. That was it. That was all I heard. They were whispering, but I heard those two things. I would tell you if I heard anything else, but as long as the owner doesn't find out.
No, of course he won't. How long ago did they leave?
Maybe an hour and a half ago.
Okay.
This timeline seems to very much match up.
That's where we'll look around to the others if they have any more questions.
They're not with you. They're in the bakery. You didn't tell them. They just saw you vanish outside with the goblin.
Okay, fair.
I would say you'll probably still wait. I think waiting on custom-made baked goods from a baking oven. John, you make baked goods from a big professional baking oven. How long would you say it's from? Are we talking like 20 minutes or so?
I mean, assuming they already have the dough pre-made.
They will.
It will be Hang
Talking
on.
at least 10, 20
I think-
minutes, right?
Yeah, thereabouts. Like if you're
Yeah.
doing them fresh.
Which you do back in, people were in less of a rush. So yeah, I think this has taken less than 10 or 20 minutes to talk to the dwarfs, to the goblin. So that's not a mistake. He's not a secret dwarf. They look quite different. Yeah, they're similar heights though. Maybe dwarves are a little taller.
Similar shoe sizes?
No. Dwarves aren't as stocky as they are in a lot of fantasy, but they are stockier than goblins, who are quite scrawny.
Okay. You're sure there's nothing else? Club 17, the steam baths by the docks.
I'm sure, sir. Just be careful. I'm telling you, he's bad business. I mean, I keep my head down and I take what pay I get, but
Okay. Thank you.
he nods and kind of runs back in the alleyway, presumably to get some wood as part of his cover story. And a few minutes later, your companions leave from the bakery. Anton passes you Arindar passes you a nut roll. You probably have a taste. Yeah, I can imagine you having a taste for kind of nut things, being like someone from the fringes of the forest.
Probably hit my fair share of nuts in the forest, maybe. Okay. There was nobody in this cellar, but making sure that there's no one like in earshot of us. But
yeah, you can find the street is relatively empty, as I say.
But the goblin was in there when they came in. From what I gather, this bakery is owned by a dwarf. Maybe the one that is named, assuming that is a dwarf name, and that he's generally bad business. But the people came into the cellar talking about hiding a prisoner. They wanted to go. They were asking for directions to a place called Club 17.
Arindar, give me a cunning roll at, let's say, +2. And you know what? Actually, Anton can take a cunning roll as well.
It's a miss from Aaron.
That is a 9 from Anton, which makes it.
Anton says, "Plob sounds like a dwarven word. I don't know what it means, though."
The best guess suggests that's the hideout. But they also mentioned the baths by the docks.
Steam baths, where you have all already gone, I think. Or certainly some of you went. So
we either go to the steam baths again or go find a dwarven dictionary.
Yeah, but there are lots of dwarves in Indaros. Like, if you ask around, you could probably find some dwarves who might talk to you, or more likely, you could ask around to find a specific dwarf who has a reputation for talking to people in return for things. Dwarves are pretty secretive about their language, their culture, their business, certainly. Some of it is necessary secrecy. As some Ron and Andrew said in comments, bakery is a mafia front. The dwarves in Indaros absolutely have a pronounced reputation for organized crime.
I think it sounds like they're not going to have taken the prisoner to a baths. That would be, I think worth investigating, but our priority should be find whatever this place is. I guess it's got to be a street or a dock. What else would have 17 as part of the name?
Warehouse, a storage unit.
All good places to hide a prisoner.
Come on, Aaron. What you got for us? Is there a warehouse district?
There'll be warehouses in the Harbour District. which the steam baths will be near.
Steam bath is the only lead that we've got that we know how to follow right now. So maybe we go there and see what's in the area.
Do you know any?
Were they asking about the steam bath as part of directions to this plob?
I don't think the goblin knew, but it's possible. I agree. Maybe we head to the steam baths. If we see any dwarves along the way, just give them a shilling to tell us what plob means.
I think that might get us in a lot more trouble than. I was going to say, Aaron, do you know anyone? Do you know any dwarves that would exchange dictionary entries for coin?
I am trying to remember what terms I left the dwarf from Fetters of Stone in. I think it was like a sort of uneasy
respect. I think. I think by the end of the story, it was very clear that he was not a good person and was there largely to protect an investment on behalf of his family. But he was one of the other survivors of the incident, and towards the end, he was certainly fighting alongside all of you. I mean, you all had to, but he fought with you, like on the occasions near the end where bloodshed was necessary. And you left the ruins with him and with all the survivors you're aware of anyway, and departed to find your caravan again, and then back to civilization. It's a good question, and you know what? Weirdly, I hadn't anticipated you using that as a contact, but that is a wonderful callback. I love it. And let me very quickly bring up some information. This is why I have a campaign book.
Wonderful callback. I love it. Unfortunately, that dwarf died 3 days ago due to mouse poisoning.
Yeah. That dwarf was called Vlador Moretko. And you don't like, he is a dwarf in a prominent dwarven family, active in Ambria, involved in organized crime. You do not know much detail about him, but you would definitely place money that he, and by extension the Moretko family, are probably in Indaros. There are very few dwarves who live in Ambria outside of Indaros. And the organized crime element of the dwarven presence in Ambria is massively centered in Indaros. So if you ask around, maybe you can find the Moretko family. If you find the Moretko family, maybe you can find Vlador, and maybe he would talk to you about that, or would at least bargain with you about that.
Yes. And if I am accidentally straying into his family's business, he might at least give me a warning before he deals with me.
Maybe you know, bonds are formed in survival situations, and there's also a great opportunity to say, anyone out there who's watched the rest of our campaign and hasn't watched Fetters of Stone because it's not in the same campaign playlist, check out our playlists, find Fetters of Stone. It's a spin-off Symbaroum story. We actually streamed on the Free League Twitch channel, which I don't think is active anymore. So I guess we did it in concert with Free League, you could argue. That definitely doesn't make it canon. And go check it out, because it's one of my favorite Symbaroum things I've done. And also, I think it's one of the only Symbaroum things I've done that I wrote it. So it's not Throne of Thorns related. It's completely separate. And it's where Arendar comes from. And has other links to our ongoing campaign as well. It's easily missed, and it's quite good, if I say so myself. So that's my plug for Fetters of Stone. How you'd find the Moretko family is presumably by asking some dwarves or other people who might be experts on organized crime in Indaros. And I guess if you ask them, maybe those people who are linking also know what plot means. But it's a good lead though. I like it.
Are there any like well-known dwarven establishments? Like this is the dwarf bar kind of thing.
If there are, you probably don't know about them.
That's fair.
Dwarves very much keep to themselves.
I have a vague memory that maybe the Moretkos had at least like a front of a legitimate family business.
Well, yeah, they're organized crime. They
But
all have a front of legitimate family concerns.
I'm trying to think if I could remember what their legitimate business is to try and reach them through that way.
All you knew about the circumstances in there was that they had invested into the expedition, which could be, that's just patronage. You know what I mean? That could be anything. But like, you know, you can ask around. There are, you know, if only there may be other people who might know stuff about the dwarves and organized crime in the city that you could ask.
The guard?
Who are not to trust, but yeah, no, it might be.
There's the guard. There's also the distant Kohinoor cousin that I went on the expedition with, who I think survived, but probably won't talk to me.
It's certainly been probably more difficult to get to her. Yeah, you don't even know if she's in Inderos. In fact, you're fairly sure she's part of the cadet branch of the family that had lands near where you were, towards like the west border of Ambria. So probably not. Maybe, but probably not. Yeah.
I do think we've got time pressure here. With a bit of money to pay our way, I feel like a dwarf would tell us what plub means, unless it means some horribly secret thing. It probably just means like street, or, you know, the name of some normal word. I think it's worth a try.
There's probably not going to be a dictionary in the library in one of the fancy halls. Oh, that would be too easy. Like, why do we just ask the guards?
It's possibly likely that there is. That's also a possibility.
Aaron, where's the best place? Where's the research library? Is there a research library? There must be. And is that in the opposite direction from where we're going? Because Ascarai's right. We got to go somewhere. I don't fancy 2 baths in one day. One was already enough of a shock to my system.
The primary library in Inderos is the Library of Anieria, which is around the corner from the Cathedral of Martyrs. It's definitely within the cordon.
Yes, I don't think we're going to be able to go to the main library.
By my internal geography, we're not that far from the steam baths here.
No, you're not.
No.
You're not at all. No.
Let's go to the steam baths, investigate. While I'm there, I might try and find an appropriately shady person to drop some hints and some money to try and get into contact with someone who might get into contact with us, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we're all heading to the steam baths. Is that the idea? So we're about to take our armor off again. That's what you're saying.
Well, so I was thinking of not going into the steam baths, but basically doing a loop of nearby streets around the steam bath, looking for things numbered 17.
Sure.
I'm gonna do that with Elindra for exactly the same reason that Steve's probably never going to take his armor off ever again.
Fair enough. So Arendara is going into the steam baths. Anton will join you. Ascarai, are you heading in as well?
Yes. I'm going to be looking for a dwarf to talk to.
Sure. Absolutely. So You find your way to the steam baths, and the three of you kind of enter it again. The entrance fee in the day is 1 thaler, which I'm assuming you are doing.
Yep.
Yep. It is mandatory when you go in that your clothes and possessions are put to one side, and you are provided with a white. Everyone is changes into a simple white loincloth provided by the staff, freshly cleaned, obviously. There are definitely fewer people in it this time than there were the first time you went. But having said that, there's not no one there. There are people still sat around, figuring that whatever happens, it's either too dangerous to worry about or not dangerous enough to worry about in the steam baths. And there are people sat around. There are some attendants scrubbing floors, attending to guests, shoveling coal into boilers. So I was right, coal in Ambria. Serving refreshments. There are some stronger stimulants being offered. And there's always, when you came here for the first time and you were offered various things, there was a kind of sense that there's maybe a secret menu, and that secret menu might involve other stimulants of a more illegal nature. There's the kind of thing you get the hint of, like, people like, oh, we offer these things, and then there's kind of silence, and they like look at you like, are you going to ask for anything else? And yeah, you can make your way around the baths. There are several rooms to go into.
Wherever Asgray has any privacy to change, I guess, clothes, I'm going to try and make a shapeshift roll to shapeshift into an Ambrian-looking person.
Okay. I thought you were going to say a dwarf.
I did think about dwarf, but then I thought, I can't ask what plub means.
Yeah.
Because,
hey, how's it going, fellow dwarf? Yeah.
Yeah. But I need a resolute roll, which is 11. So God knows, that's a 12. So that's a failure.
Never mind. Okay. The three of you are now in the baths. There are people scattered around. There are attendants. What are we doing?
Is there anyone here who was also here yesterday that gives the sense
God.
that they are always here?
And
more like, is there a shady guy that is always at the baths? Kind of.
I don't think you can say that, having been here once before, and the first time not saying that you were looking around and noticing the people who are here.
That's fair.
Are there any dwarfs?
Let me make a roll. I'd say they probably come in here less, but not never. So, I'm going to give you a 1 in 10 chance that there's a dwarf in here right now.
Not very good.
There are no dwarves in the steam baths right now, I'm afraid.
Then,
I'm sure there are people who would know about dwarves who might or may not be here regularly, or indeed generally about customers in the steam baths.
yeah, I think I'm going to try and talk to one of the attendants.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to...
Sir, can I be of any help to you?
Do we have... I'm going to talk to them somewhere semi-private.
Sure, you catch them in like a little corridor between steam chambers.
I was wondering whether you often get dwarves in here or not, or whether they tend to keep to themselves, I suppose.
Dwarves, sir?
Yes.
Are there any particular dwarves you think should be here, sir?
I suppose I was wondering whether any members of the Moretko family may be known to you, and whether one may be able to get a message to Vlador.
Well, sir, that sounds like a very specific request. for which I would refer you to my manager. There is, of course, a question. He's such a busy gentleman, and a great deal of time and money slips through his fingers for anything outside the management of the baths. I would say perhaps for a recompense of 10 thaler, you could speak to my manager and he may be able to help you with your request. It's pricey.
Now, 10 thaler is... Well, I understand that there are costs associated with running such a fine establishment, but...
Absolutely, sir. The price is non-negotiable. Can you give me a cunning roll?
Yes. That's a fail.
Never mind.
Yeah, I failed the check. Very well. 10 thaler it is.
Well, sir, I let us go to where your effects are stored. You can pass me the 10 thaler and then I will take you to my manager.
Of course.
Is it just you who will be coming with us? I did note that you entered with 2 companions.
Myself and the good father there.
Of course, sir. Handily. I mean, he's dressed in a white loincloth, so I'm not sure he's that recognizable as a Theurg. But
He's
good that you told
look.
him that. But now you've given him that information.
Yes.
So
it's got the back piece, though. You can't miss the Prios back piece.
It's like a huge tribal tattoo,
over,
son.
like fucking prison tattoo style. Full back piece.
Knuckle tats, except they both say love.
Yeah. One tear. One little sun tattoo next to the eye. Okay. Let's this is an encounter which needs an extra bit of art, so give me a moment.
In case you are feeling jilted, Sam, I did not point Askrai out because I assume you are off doing sneaky shit.
Looking for dwarves that don't exist.
Yeah.
Okay. You are escorted first to your possessions and hand over 10 thaler, I presume.
Yeah.
And then on to down some corridors, and all the area here is it would have what we would associate with baths, right? It's got ceramic walls and floors from which liquid can kind of easily be swept. And you are led down a number of these until you reach what can only be described as a private bath salon that also seems to serve as some kind of office. It comes complete with a steaming hot pool, a kind of desk nook, and 4 divans where guests are received and sat around them. The most fully dressed person you've seen since you entered the steam baths is a changeling. Changelings are quite unusual to see without masks. Like, they don't all wear masks, but they're often dressed in quite a concealing way. Although maybe a little less in Indaros than in other places where they may come into a bit more suspicion. But he is kind of lounging on one of the divans, eating some chilled grapes from a sort of metal bucket propped up at his side. And he kind of gestures to the other divans and says, "Good sir, father, please. It seems that you wish to speak to me about the dwarves of Indaros in some fashion. The Moretko family, if I heard correctly. My name is Grimorio, incidentally, former magician and entertainer, now gladly employed as the manager of these steam baths."
pleased to meet you, Grimorio. I am Arendar.
Wonderful. And Antom says, I am Father Antom of the Church of Prios. Then you have my condolences, Father. A very sad day. Antom nods. It seemed like very token courtesy, though.
Mm-hmm. Yes, was hoping to get in contact with a person I have had previous dealings with, as I am in the city.
I see. And that person is?
Vlador Moretko.
I can certainly tell you the approximate area in which the Moretko family operates. I cannot introduce them directly myself. My businesses often butt up against those of the dwarfs.
I understand that it is a particularly sensitive topic of conversation for a lot of people in this fine city.
But why do you wish to speak to this Vlador Moretko? Perhaps it is something I can help you with instead.
Well, you have mentioned that you have some dealings with the dwarf, though adversarial from the sounds of it.
Oh, not entirely adversarial. It depends on the dwarf.
How familiar are you with the language?
Try me.
Plob.
Which plob?
Does that change the translation?
No, but it might change what else I can do for you.
Plob 17.
Well then. A plob is an underpass. They connect the otherwise isolated cross streets, mostly of Newtown. Most of them resemble narrow, roofed cobblestone alleys, though some have twin gates wide enough that entire carriages can pass through them. The dwarves use them to navigate the city, both above ground and down to the ruins of Lindaros.
And is 17 significant in any way?
Sadar, I'm afraid that your 10 thala bought you what a plob is.
I understand.
Would you like to know where plob 17 is?
I would. And I would question whether the information that I am interested in plob 17 is worth knowing where plob 17 is.
Of course it is not. Besides, you've already freely given me that. You came in here with a blade, one of your companions with a very fine-looking bow. Are you capable of their use?
Personally, not the bow, no, but...
But the sword?
Yes.
Well, then I could use your help with a small job, something my employees have had a hard time handling. Well known as they are by appearance and manners, my shamans have a reputation. Arendar, roll cunning at +5.
That's a pass.
The shamans are one of the most notorious street gangs of Indaros.
Ah, yes. Okay.
In short, if you grant me this favor, I agree to answer one question. That question could, for example, be the location of plob 17, which I know precisely.
May I hear the task before I agree to it?
Of course. There is a storehouse, one run by nobleman Dastan's associates. I require a small wooden crate bringing back containing 8 doses of a draft. It will be recognizable. And the rest of the crates near it require burning. Whether the entire building is also burnt is optional, but I would certainly prefer that to be the case. Could you roll? You don't need to roll to know who Nobleman Dastan is. You were in Indaros at least for a number of years. I think we've talked about Old Kadazar, which is like the area of Indaros that's like the old barbarian settlement with the walls. You kind of came in near it. Old Kadazar is very informally run by an individual called Nobleman Dastan, also known as the Thief King.
Do I know much of his reputation other than the name? I mean, I
He's a
can guess
thief.
from the name, but
He's
okay.
a thief. He is a thief with heirs who has he has almost complete control of Old Kadazar, a thing which is probably extremely irritating to the city guard and the Kohinoors. I mean, he's sort of elevated into a somewhat folk hero type figure by people who are very down on their luck and thus don't have anything worth stealing. Occasionally, these stories involve him, stealing from the rich to give to the poor of Old Kadazar. You personally, having lived here for years and years in Indaros, have never actually encountered anyone who's benefited from this told of largesse. So you have a certain amount of cynicism about how much someone called the Thief King gives away the things he thieves. But people often people under the boot of authority often like a counter-authority figure, even though you've never really heard anything about him being a better option.
Yeah, I think I feel all right about vandalizing this guy's stuff.
Oh, he's definitely not a good guy.
Yeah.
You don't think he's a good guy. Yeah. You're not sure how bad a guy he is. Certainly you don't know how bad a guy he is compared to, for example, the Moretko family or Grimorio here.
Yeah.
So
how heavily guarded would this shipment be?
My people tell me there are quite a lot of people in the area, but probably easily distracted and not particularly committed to its defense. We estimate no more than 4 or 5 direct guards. Nothing that the heroes of the sinkhole cannot handle. Was there anything else, Sadar? If you do not wish to take me up on my services, there is no harm. Walk away and perhaps we will never speak again. If you do undertake this task, return to me with the crate, the 8 drafts, and I will show you where Plob 17 is.
I will bring it to my companions for discussion.
Of course. A pleasure doing business.
Thank you for your hospitality.
Okay. You stand up and leave his office, as it were, and I think that's a good place to leave for the day because we're a little bit over time already. And also, now you're involved in organized crime in Indaros. That was a
I mean, we were going to do that as soon as I started asking after a crime boss. Like,
Yeah, sure. So there we go. Lovely. Well, I'd say Vlador's more of an enforcer than a boss. You know, the boss doesn't go and protect the investment himself.
If you go around asking for a member of the Sopranos family, it doesn't matter if you're
Sure.
asking for Tony or one of the others.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, there we go. Lovely. Get your comments, questions, and the like in chat, please, folks. Check below. There's a bunch of links. All the kind of stuff you might imagine is down there. Check it out. With the caveat that if you take a look at our Patreon, it's very likely that the offerings in place are going to shuffle around considerably sometime soon, largely because we absolutely haven't been keeping up with it. And apologies for that. But as regular viewers know, life is life at the moment. So things will probably get juggled around there. We have returning next. I believe the plan is to return to Monday night streaming this coming Monday. That's, of course, going to be our ongoing Massive Nyarlathotep campaign with Johnny and the gang. More Call of Cthulhu creepiness, creepy, eldritch, massive campaigness to be going on there. And then, hopefully, the current plan is that on the 6th of February, we'll see the return of the Yellow King. Probably, I mean, definitely not weekly, but probably not fortnightly, at least to begin with, probably maybe monthly or so, because it's a big old, it's very good and it's very fun, but it's also a big old pain in the ass to prep for. So, yeah, that's probably going to be happening. We'll also hopefully be getting our next one-shot up and running sometime soon, which is very, 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 very likely to be the Electric State, because we've done a bit of prep work for it and gathered a crew and stuff like that. So that will probably be happening at some point soon, but it's not in the diary yet. Ooh, have we got some people to thank for the old Twitch stuff? Yeah, we got a few people followed us in our interim, I think. Got a lovely resubscribe from Azimuth, as ever. Thank you. We've got follows from Pelikuvasi and Selinen, and also someone called Alternative Elements. That's an amazing name, and I definitely didn't pick it myself as part of my upcoming new Twitch channel. Keep an eye out for that. Which no one here knows about either. So that's, well, I might have spoken to John about this. I can't remember, but there we go. But that's a surprise to come. It's got nothing to do with TTRPGs, so you know, gird yourself for disappointment there. All right. Comments, questions, monkey business, the usual, please, John. Ronald Andrew, is it dwarfish or dwarven in Symbaroum? And I believe we had some comedy follow-up suggestions.
we did.
There will be an answer to that, but dwarfies from Iridescent Aria. I actually don't know, and I should probably check. But I tend to float around between them. Dwarven, dwarfish.
What kind of a Tolkien nerd are you?
I think the default, because I don't think I've ever seen. I think they are dwarfs in Symbaroum, so I think it would be dwarfish rather than dwarven. Yeah, but I'm probably going to use both because, you know, word variety is king. Next,
we have a correction for the sweetbreads.
It's pancreas, actually, not liver, from Ron and Andrew again. There we go.
Thanks.
3, 4, 5 layers deep on the pedantry there. I love it.
Yeah, nice.
We're just bread-splaining now.
It's not bread.
Just organ-splaining now.
That's the point. That's the point of this entire discussion, Stephen.
I'm so far behind the curve.
This is our first bit of 2025, and it's god-awful.
The bakery episode is my favorite episode now.
Gotta love it.
We had a reaction to the sun buns.
Oh no, Prios is hot.
And the follow-up.
Also, what we say to Anton when he's wearing his short shorts. I mean, that's actually, is that a direct reference to when he had to tear up his robe to tie off so many wounds?
I think so. I know there's some canon somewhere about Anton wearing short shorts.
Yes.
Or maybe he stripped them off because he has that ritual where he like
burns
stands in a
himself.
fire, right, to burn away corruption. So
I think it
That
might have
sounds pretty
even come from
hardcore.
his original art, where like it cuts off at a certain point. I'm not
maybe.
sure. I might be making that up.
Maybe.
I reckon Anton is one of those guys that you just like, you don't think much about, and then you just kind of catch a glimpse of the robes, and you're like,
And he's fucking ripped.
Yeah.
I weirdly also have that impression of him as well, where
Yeah.
it's like, what the fuck?
It's like a
With
Ned
the tattoos
Flanders.
as well.
yeah.
I live a crazy ascetic lifestyle. What did you expect? Yeah.
That's why when he crits
Yeah,
every
Ned-
100
Ned
episodes.
Flanders is the perfect comparison. I only just clocked this one. Who said that? Was it you, Chris?
That was me.
It was John. Amazing. Yeah. That meme of Flanders' butt when he's skiing. Stephen, meanwhile, down below, plot is happening is one of my chat up lines. Yeah, I saw this and appreciated it.
I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
It should be. God.
That's true. Also,
If we can get to week 2 without getting cancelled, that would be great.
I think we should put that on a shirt with an arrow. Next, please.
who would buy that?
Who would buy any of our current merch?
Good
Stephen, walking in, demanding to see the manager, Karen Dar.
It's not getting better.
Stephen's on fire tonight,
Yeah.
Or at the very least,
Like-
should be.
like a sunbun.
Yeah.
Next,
We have an idea for Anton's tattoos.
from Steve. One hand says Prio, the other says S. Yeah, I saw this. What's that? Because that's a there's a Simpsons bit like that as well, right? Because they've got 3 fingers, so like a
Doesn't Sideshow Bob have love and hat or something?
yeah, love and hit with an umlaut. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, we have another
Which links to which I guess I don't know if is it in the same episode as the Die Bart Die. No one who speaks German could be evil.
I think it is.
Yeah, the Barthy. Yeah, another one from area Dwarvik. Yeah, another possibility. There we go. Lovely stuff. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to my lovely players for returning in 2025. We still hold out hope that Mike will be joining us at some point. I will find out more information about him from that soon. But in the meantime, thanks to everyone for watching. Tune in next week for Call of Cthulhu on Monday, more Symbaroum on Wednesday. Take care. Stay safe. We will see you soon. Farewell, folks. Goodbye.